So we look at sequences here and what we call the iterative equation. One thing we need to know is that we start working on things like terms. Well, T1 is always called the first term. And T for term, obviously. T2 will be the second, T3 the third, etc., etc. Well, Tn is called the nth term. But it's important to remember that for this sort of kind of exercise, it's going to be called the next term. When we talk about the iterative functions or equations, we talk about the next term. And on that basis, if Tn is the next term, then Tn minus 1 will be the previous term. And that's something we need to try and remember when we do these iterative statements. So we've got a sequence here, 6, 10, 14, 18, 22. We know that the first term is 6, the second term is 10, etc., etc., T4 and T5. We've got to look for a pattern here. And what's happening is we're adding 4 each time, plus 4, and it's a consistent pattern. It's linear. So therefore, we're looking for a formula that's going to be in reiterative that is a linear pattern. What's going on? Well, we know that the next term equals the previous term plus 4. So the next term equals the previous term plus 4. So therefore the formula will be Tn, because the next term is Tn. Tn minus 1 is the previous term, and then plus 4. And that is called the iterative equation. So this type of question here, we know that we're going down by 3. We're subtracting 3 from each term. Negative 16 to negative 19. So we then have the next term equals the previous minus 3. And we put that into iterative terms. We know that the next term, Tn, is what we call, and the previous term is Tn minus 1 minus 3. Fairly easy stuff, and not too bad. So we're going to try and find the formula for the nth term. We go back and look at what each term is. This is T1, let's put it in blue, T2, T3, T4, T5, and we're going to find out the formula that would be for the nth term. Now, it doesn't really mean anything, except the nth term, we can now work out any term. So we know this is going up by 8 each time. And when it goes up in a linear fashion like this by the same amount, it actually makes our life a lot easier for finding out the nth term. And we know it's linear, so therefore we know that Tn, the 8, is like a slope, and it sits in front of the variable. And we know that we're going to be plus or minus a number to make this work. Well, the easiest way of making this work is to find out the number that would come before 7. And of course, if we're adding 8, we just find it by subtracting 8, and we get negative 1. And this number, negative 1, the number that would become before the first term, just slots into the number we're looking for. And therefore, the answer would be Tn equals 8n minus 1. And we can always substitute to find out and see if we're right. If n is 1, 8 times 1 is 8, minus 1 is 7, and we do get the answer 7. If n is 2, 8 times 2 is 16, minus 1 is indeed 15. If n is 3, 8 3s are 24, minus 1 is 23. So we're right. So here's the homework. Question 1a says the first term is 4, and the formula says the next term equals the previous term plus 3. So T2 would be the previous term plus 3, which would be 4 plus 3 is 7. T3 will be the previous term plus 3, 10. And T4 will be the previous term plus 3, 13. Question B says T2 is 2 times the previous term minus 1. So 2 7s are 14, minus 1 is 13. T3 is 2 times the previous term, which would be 2 13ths of 26 minus 1 25. And T4 will be 2 times the previous term, which is 2 times 25 minus 1 49. Question C here, and D and E. E is interesting because it talks about this n term. So T2 will be 2 times n. Well, n is this number here that you've already written down. So it's going to be 2 times 2 minus 3 times the previous term. The previous term is 8. So 4 minus 24 is negative 20. T3 will be 2 times n. N is this number here, 3, minus 3 times the previous term, which is negative 20. So therefore we get 6 plus 60 is 66. T4 is 2 times n. N is this number 4, minus 3 times the previous term, 66. 3 times 66 is 198, and 8 minus 198 is negative 190. So finish off these questions for homework.